All right, guys, we're live. Welcome back. We're blessed today to be joined by my friend Alex from Dubai. We're going to be talking about gold, tax efficiency, asset protection, Dubai, relationships, everything. He's one of the gentlemen that I met on my recent trip there a couple months ago. Before we get started, I just want to draw your attention to the top left of your screen. There's a QR code there you can scan with your mobile device, and that will take you to my 3 community offerings. You want to check those out if you want to connect with me on a deeper level and really get to level up. And in the bottom ticker there, there's 2 offerings for an opt-in for my email list. You'll see entrepreneursandcars.com/red-flags, where you can get my 21 red flag chapter for free, along with the 16 green flag chapter from my newest book, also for free. And we've developed a new AI tool, which is an assessment that'll help you understand where you stand on the 7 spokes of a high value man. And below my finger right now, you'll see that on a ticker. That's test.theunpluggedalpha.com, and that's a totally free assessment. It takes you less than 10 minutes, and it'll spit out a little bit of a spider graph that'll tell you where you are in the world and what you need to do to improve. Alex, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much, Rich. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we've got some bandwidth issues, so you might see a little bit of instability with the video or freezing up, but trust me, the audio is working good, and what he says is a lot more important than what he looks like.
Amen. Amen to that.
So we met on that yacht day that Jewel put together, for everybody. And that was a really cool sort of day and, hang session, if you will. It was a good introduction into the kind of guys that live in that city. I mean, they're not all like that, obviously, but the kind of guys that were on that boat that live in that city were very, very interesting, from all walks of life, from all over the globe. All of them, with the exception of one guy, was an expat. So there was one Emirati on the boat, I think. But it was a really, really good time. How long have you lived in Dubai for?
I moved here. Funnily enough, I escaped the crazy COVID rules of Canada. And if you remember in 2020, when they opened up the doors for like a week and we were allowed to escape.
Yeah.
Well, I jumped on a flight in 2020 and escaped as quickly as I could. Came to Dubai.
No kidding. Why did you pick Dubai at the time?
Again, another funny story. I basically asked Siri, "Hey Siri, where in the world is open?" And she graciously responded, "Dubai is open. Why don't you give it a shot?" Came to Dubai.
So you just rolled the dice. Let's check it out.
Came here, no plan, no job, no gig. I was out of work for about a year, working on a project. So I was back and forth from London and Frankfurt. I had a home base there for about a year and a half, and came home from Frankfurt after signing a big deal. I was actually building a humanitarian program for autistic children, and put together the funding, had World Bank approval, had a big play, had an investor lined up who was putting in $15 billion into this project. My life was set. And I said, okay, you know what? While all the funds and all the DD is being done, I'm going to go home, going to go hang with my kid for about a month because I'm probably not going to be back for about 3 or 4 months. Flew home on the date. The exact date was February 4th, 2020. And my flight back was March 16th, 2020. And then on, the 14th or 15th or something like that, the entire world shut down, and oopsie. No more humanitarian program.
What was Dubai like during the COVID lockdowns? Just out of curiosity, did you have to stand on dots, wear masks? Were there any kind of forced injections?
There were some forced injections. No. Masks, yes. If you wanted to jump on a flight, you had to PCR within like 24 hours. Oh my God, I had so many PCR tests. I think I don't have any cartilage left in my nose. But yeah, it was wide open. The restaurants were open. It wasn't a hassle. Nobody was looking at you sideways. If you were sitting at your table, you could actually take it off while you're eating and drinking, whatever. I mean, it was awesome. It was really, really cool to be in a functioning country where they weren't absolutely incensed with the craziness of Canada. I mean, I remember when I was home, I went to walk my neighbor's dog, my buddy's dog, who was trapped in the house, and I was out without a mask for 4 minutes, and I had people from the neighboring house put on your mask. You're going to kill someone. I'm like, fuck off. Are you serious? I got to kill somebody from outside because I don't have a mask on. Oh, come on, you pansy. Turn around, shut up, get fucking back in your house before I let the dog loose on you.
Mm, yeah. I mean, I still see people here today that drive around in their cars by themselves with the windows up, wearing a mask, and it is what it is. It's just it's just part of people's mindset. They're just like that.
Is it the
Um,
pussification of Canada? Is that what's going on? Or
yeah, the pacification of the West. I did a video about that in like 2016 or 17 when I came to the realization how they're slowly pussifying the Western male, and the Western females taking on the supremacy like ideology with toxic feminism. Um, I should probably update that video because it's getting close to 10 years old now, and things have actually gotten quite a bit worse since then. But a lot of my predictions came true.
Hmm.
Um, so you're in the gold business. You've got a refinery in Dubai now, but I want to hear about like your origin story. Like, who were you growing up? What was the appeal? Like the general appeals to you in life. What did you want to be when you're growing up? Like stories like that.
What did I want to be when I was growing up? Oof. Well, I was a pretty good goalie when I was a kid, so I wanted to be Patrick Roy. Being from Montreal, that was my idea. Uh, Realized I was too lazy to play professional hockey and didn't like to practice very much. I was pretty good at it, but I hated practicing it. Switched gears, started playing a lot of golf. Realized I was really good at it. Um, was an excellent junior, had a couple of runs here in the Canadian Nationals as a junior and all that. Um, Played rugby in high school, fell in love with that.
Mm,
So went pretty far in rugby, and honestly, I thought I was going to be an athlete growing up, but destiny had other plans, and a couple injuries here and there, and got fat, out of shape, and next thing you know, oopsie, can't be an athlete anymore. So I had to use the other muscle, was the one between the ears. So I don't
mhm.
know. I didn't have much practice, so it was very fresh. In my 20s and 30s, it was a fresh muscle, so I got to use that one quite a bit. Now I use it quite extensively. So
What'd you do in Montreal before you left?
I was a banker. I was a director at the Royal Bank of Canada.
Okay.
Yeah,
In
I was working special projects for the bank. So basically, I did every kind of financing known to man. Whatever project they had, they wanted to figure out how to do compliance on. That was my specialty.
Did you like were you working for Royal Bank at the time when you left, or did they lay you off, or?
No, no, no. Well, funny story there. Don't really want to get into the backstory, but let's just say I resigned in 2018 to go do my own thing. I figured I closed the biggest financing in RBC history. Should have been promoted to VP. They didn't promote me. So I basically told them, I said, okay, well, give me 15 years. I'm going to buy 5% and take over the company, kick all you old fuckers out,
Mm.
and cancel all your pensions and figure out how to do that. So I got 8 more years to go before I make that happen.
And you're in the gold business now. I mean, your Instagram talks a lot about gold. You got some really good clips and reels on there. You've got a refinery in Dubai. How
Hmm.
does
Hmm.
how did you set up a gold refinery in Dubai? Like, why set that up in Dubai of all places?
Well, Dubai is the gold market of the world. If you think about it logically, you have the biggest buyers, which are either Indian and Pakistani or Chinese, and you have the biggest raw gold supply, which is in Africa. And Dubai happens to sit right in the middle of that entire ecosystem. So easy for them to come here, easy for the gold to come here. I probably shouldn't say this, but it's, probably one of the places that will actually still accept African gold. Compliance and KYC issues, when it comes to the gold trade, probably not the most strict. Our protocol is very strict. Most of our precious metals are sourced in the U.S. So we don't deal a lot with that, and we do a lot of servicing for our existing clients. But yeah, why UAE? Basically for access to buyers and supply, right in the
Mm.
middle of everything.
What's it like running a business in the UAE versus Canada, for example? I mean, I'm very familiar with the Canadian market, obviously. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to hear what the differences that you found between living and working in Montreal to living and working and running a gold refinery, like a physical shop that smelts gold in Dubai.
Well, there was a culture shock when I got here in 2020, Rich. I'm not gonna lie. For us to set up a company takes about 14 seconds. Go to the registry, go to the website, pay a couple $100, and boom, you have a company. Here, it's not so easy. Here, the first time to open a company, my first company is called Aluka Project Management, and that took me about 6 months to open. At the same time, I tried to open up a gold trading license, a gold trading company with one of the free zones here, called the DMCC,
Hmm.
and that took me almost 9 months. And to set up a bank account for the first company took me a good 3 months after the 6 months it took to open the company.
Mm.
And then for the DMCC, it took me almost a year. So they
You
kept
found
me
it
on for
harder
a
and
year.
longer to open up a business in Dubai than you did in Canada?
Sure. I came here with no connections. I didn't understand the system. The culture
Yeah.
shock was real, right?
Okay.
Now that I'm firmly established, I mean, it would probably still take a couple of months to open up all these entities because
Hmm.
it's really, really slow. So I would do things a lot differently than I did originally. But there is a culture shock when you come here without having any network. Like if you were to come here now,
Hmm.
you'd have everything set up in a month, right? Visas, everything. But first time coming here was not easy.
What was the biggest shock to you as far as the culture went?
Well, back home, it's pretty quick to do everything, right? I mean, so, except going to the hospital, everything's pretty efficient. You
Hmm.
can you can get appointments, you can get things going. Here, not always the easiest to get things moving in the right direction. And God forbid you raise your voice a little bit at some Indian banker, and oh, sorry, sir, I can't speak to me like that, and bloop, they hang up the phone, and then you got to wait a month for him to call you back.
Mm.
So interesting dichotomy. Until you've established yourself, where now they're chasing you and offering you stuff. But when you're the new kid on the block without that infrastructure and without those people, it's not so easy. It was a tough year and a half. First year and a half I got here was tough.
Explain the free zone concept because I never got any clarity on that. So what's a free zone in the UAE? Like what is that exactly?
Well, there are three different types of zones where you operate. The first one is mainland, where you're basically operating on Dubai land. It means you can deal with every single company that is also on land. Free zone are designated zones where they're basically tax-free zones where you're not if you're not in intertwining with any local businesses, there's no VAT charges on mostly everything, right? So VAT is kind of like our GST and PST.
Hmm.
So kind of the similar thing. It's a flat 5% versus back home, and that's their VAT tax here. And the third structure is offshore, which is completely off of any Dubai land. It's not inside Dubai land in a free designated zone or tax-free zone. You're completely offshore.
Hmm.
So those are the three designations. The difference is basically, as they say, offshore is offshore. It's completely not registered in Dubai. You have an entity that's kind of like a trust that's outside of the system. Free zone, VAT free, but you can't operate on Dubai land. You have to operate with other free zones or international. And then
Hmm.
you have the mainland stuff, which operates, everywhere and anywhere.
Okay, that's interesting. Overall, is it easier now to do business in Dubai and get set up and get banking versus
Without question, without question. And
what
the
changed
and
in
the
5 years?
the network, having friends, understand, making money here, being successful. You jump the food chain from the banking perspective. Instead of dealing with a teller, you're dealing with the managers.
Mhm.
Then you're upping the competency scale, and you're dealing
Mhm.
with people who are actually professionals who want to help.
Um, How did you build your network in Dubai? Like, what did you do to integrate with? I mean, like some of the guys that were on the boat that day, as an example, and obviously, beyond that, because you're well connected, you're obviously smart and successful. You asked Siri where to go during the lockdowns, and she said, "Just go to Dubai," and you gave it a whirl. So, what strategies did you use to build network? I mean, that's a question that gets asked a lot of the time by guys that watch my content, and I'd love to hear from a guy like you.
Rich, we went out to dinner one night together, you, me, and your buddy Jewel, our buddy Jewel, and Rick. We had a great dinner, right?
Mhm.
So, and you remember the place we went to? We don't have to. We could give it a plug if you want to.
Yeah, plug it. It was a great meal.
Yeah, it was La Petite Maison.
Yeah.
So La Petite Maison was right next to my house, right next to my apartment where I was staying. And my strategy was go hang out at the bar, see who's who, because all the players will end up going there. I'm in the financial center in Dubai,
Mhm.
and just wanted to watch, see who was coming in, who was spending money, who was moving, who was shaking, and just watch. For the first month, 2 months, I just sat back and watched,
Mhm.
right? And then I do what nosy people do, is I tried to integrate myself into conversations, and basically that's what I did. And once I did that, you have to provide, you have to show like you can provide some value or some intelligence in different conversations,
Mhm.
make yourself useful, which I did. And my first job, and you asked me before how I got into the gold business or why the gold business. First thing during COVID was, oh man, I got this load in Africa and I want to bring it back to Dubai. Nobody wants to go. I'll go. Right at the bar. That was my first job.
Mhm.
Said, I'll go. How much does it pay? And when do you want me to start? So made it. The guy said, you really want to go to Kenya? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to go to Kenya. I've never been to Kenya. I'd love to go to Kenya. Can't wait to go to Kenya. Great. Here you go. Here's your flight. Here's your ticket. Here's your pay. Here's your stuff. Guess what? Went to Kenya.
Mm. How was that?
That was
Did you like
that
Kenya?
was another culture. That was another culture shock.
I bet.
But it was interesting. I mean, it was interesting. And then by doing that, I ended up going on like 30 or 40 trips to Kenya over an 18-month period, and just started learning, making contacts, making connections. Got scammed, I don't know how many times. It was just brilliant to see how many different ways you can screw people out of money. It's a
Right.
great life lesson for me. And
Mhm.
I'm a pretty street smart guy, but I have to
You
tell
got a
you,
good story about that? About like
uh,
a Kenyan scam, aside from the ones that like email you and say that they're a Kenyan prince and they want like access to your bank account to give you 10% of the fucking pile of gold.
oh my God. Well, the typical scam is, you got to come here, you got to see the gold, you got to pay the exit taxes, and if you pay the exit taxes, well, then you've got to do this and that, and then we'll ship the gold. And anyway, uh, there's no gold. There's a little three-card Monte action going on, and then you end up at home with a box of rocks.
Mm.
So that's what they do. And then you get smarter, and then you get a little craftier, and then you become a little bit more shrewd, and then you set them up. And then, once you make your reputation over there, like you actually know what you're doing,
Mhm.
you can actually meet with the real guys who are doing stuff. Um, the other thing that's a massive red flag, Richard, if just for anyone who's listening, if somebody is offering you something for free or something from a market perspective that really doesn't make sense,
Mm.
it's probably because it's fake.
Mm.
You see it all the time. Yeah, I can buy gold at 55,000 a kilo. Really? You can buy gold for 55,000 a kilo? Yeah, except I got to go deep, deep, deep into the jungle to buy it. Good luck with that.
Mm.
Maybe you buy it for 55,000, but good luck coming out, or good luck coming out with all your hands and fingers and feet and toes, and or good luck coming out at all. And again, I'd say, uh, if you did by any chance make it to the airport, do you think you're actually going to get it onto a plane? Do you have a license to operate in that country? Do you have any permits to do anything like this? Or you're just a private guy, you think you're going to take gold out of an existing country, a sovereign country,
Mhm.
and not pay any taxes and not do anything legally by the book, but you're the smart one. You're the smart Canadian guy that's going to figure it all out on the spot while you're there.
What's a
Okay.
kilo of gold sell for right now?
Right now it's about 165, 170 bucks, 170K.
Yeah, if it always, whenever something sounds too good to be true, it generally is, right? It's usually a scam. It's usually some kind of bullshit.
It's a scam.
Yeah.
It's a scam.
You know what's interesting is that you worked for one of Canada's biggest banks, and
Mm-hmm.
you had access to all kinds of commodities, investment products, credit facilities, everything. Bitcoin, stock markets. Why did you pick gold?
Again, Rich, it was the first thing that was up here, and I've realized I was pretty good at it. It combined skill sets. I have big balls, so I don't mind going into the jungle to go and find gold.
Mm.
And where nobody was willing to go, I went. Right? Nobody had the gusto to jump on a flight to Africa and go gold hunting. Well, guess what? I did. And
So
now, 5 years later, the gold guy is born.
yeah, so you ran into a guy at that bar that we had dinner at, and he
Hmm.
needed somebody to go into the middle of Africa, or had an opportunity in the middle of Africa. You had nothing going on at the time. You said, "Fuck it, I'll do it."
Fuck it. That was it. It was those exact words. The thought process behind it was fuck it. I'm in.
Yeah, interesting. Have you always been like that?
If you ask my mom, she'd probably say yes. I was not smart from the very young age. I was more balls than brains.
So, the title of this podcast is "Playing to Win." It's a concept I learned years ago when I was a member of Entrepreneurs Org in Toronto, and you'd have like speakers come in, like Vern Harnish and stuff like that.
Mm,
And there's a difference between playing to win and playing not to lose, right?
mm.
Playing to win, you obviously, you want to come in number one. Playing not to lose is like, I'm going to play a little
Two's
more
good enough.
conservative.
Yeah.
Second or third place is okay for me, right?
Hmm.
Are you a playing to win guy most of the time, or are there times in your life where you've been like, I'm going to play not to lose on this one?
So one one of the things that I love doing is I love coaching and mentoring people, right? And my younger brother, who beautiful kid, not a kid anymore, grown man, but coached him in rugby at our high school, and I had him from grade 8 to grade 11, and I coached him every single year for 4 years. And we won a couple of championships and a couple of championships with the following classes. But we had a saying, and our first saying, number one rule, was refuse to lose. We refuse. Losing is not even an option. If you're not going out to win every single thing you do, stay home.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not ready to fight, if you're not ready to hit it at the gym, in the office, in your meeting, if you're not ready to kill the podcast that I'm on today with you, if you're not ready to do that, stay home and don't do it. Kill everything you do or stay home.
How old were you at the time when you figured that out?
I don't know, Rich. I think you're either born with it or you're not. Do you think it's something that can be developed?
Well, what's interesting about that is I've noticed that a lot of firstborns have more of a killer instinct. I think because they have it a little hard. Like, are you firstborn? Because you said your
Yeah.
younger brother. Yeah, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
We always have it harder. We have tighter rules. Like we're the test kid, for our parents. They don't really know what the fuck they're doing, so they give us a hard time a lot of the time, especially like old school. Like my parents are from Europe, obviously, so they're a little more stringent with everything. And I think that if you have a tougher upbringing, if you have a tougher life, then it sort of forms that want in you. Like the vast majority of like CEOs, entrepreneurs, airline pilots, lawyers, they're all firstborns, right?
Mm.
It's just kind of like baked into the nature of us. So I believe there's an element of it that can possibly be learned. Maybe you become an athlete and you're a middle child or something like that, and you get pushed to the point and you see winners and you see winning, and you sort of adopt that mentality and mindset. But I think there's definitely a contingent of guys out there that are just born with it, that just have the killer instinct, and they're just relentless, right?
I think we have to be, Rich. I mean, look, we grew up in. So I grew up in Canada. I grew up in Montreal. Didn't come from very much. At the end of the day, whatever you want in life, it's out in front of you. If you see it, you want it, go get it. right? I wasn't handed a silver spoon. I was handed a wooden spoon many times by my grandmother, who used to beat me with it.
Mhm.
Beautiful Polish woman, you know, the big wooden spoons, and whack every time
Mhm.
you know, you looked at something, you tried to steal something from the kitchen, and whack.
Mhm.
So, yeah, absolutely, man. Whatever you want, it's here. And you know, I'm going to say something corny, but there's no more. There's so much gold here in Dubai. If you want the gold, just go and take it.
Mhm.
You're competing against very, very, very weak, very effeminate men and guys that, you know, don't like to get their fingers dirty, or, you know, they go for their manicures and they want to make sure that, you know, that they look good for date night.
Mhm.
Perfect, no problem. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna go take your lunch money. I'm gonna go do the job. I'm gonna take all the business from you. At the end of the day, you know, I'll probably get the girl too, because you're too much of a twat to realize what's going on.
Yeah, man. Like, the competition isn't that fierce anymore, it seems, for some reason. Like, I noticed that, like, there's an element of competition and fierceness with a lot of the guys that I met in Dubai, but I guess it's like the crowd that Jules sort of travels with, right? Birds of a
Mm,
feather sort of flock together. He said to me before I got there, or maybe the day that I got there, he said, I take hosting very seriously. I'm going to make sure you have a very good time, and I'm going to introduce you some good people and that sort of stuff. And he under promised and over delivered even with that statement.
yeah.
um, and I think it's really important for guys to surround themselves with other like-minded men that are doing the work, that are winners, that want to level up, that obviously have each other's back, sort of thing.
Hmm.
And that's a rare quality today. The older I get, the rarer it seems to be. The reality of it, you, these like men cut from that same fine fabric. um, and there's lots of opportunities for guys out there to level up and again, do the work and become that sort of top shelf man. But a lot of guys ask me often, why do you think guys don't do it? Why aren't guys leaning into the work and doing it? And we have a softer, weaker generation for sure. I think you and I are about the same age, and you talk about your childhood, which sounds a lot like my childhood. I didn't have it easy. I remember being cold a lot, not being fed well. I'd go to the fridge and get like a little yogurt cup, and my dad would yell at me, "You've had your allowance for the day, and that's the only one you get," sort of thing. And I'm like, I'm fucking starving at 16, like this. I'm a fucking stick. But that's how things were, right?
Yeah.
Today it's like, everybody's like, wah, 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 give me free shit, fucking the rich, this and that, tax them more. And it's just such a bizarre mindset. Is that something that you see much of living in Dubai now that you've been there for 5 years?
You know, everybody here that I entertain, or that I hang with, or that I meet, right? All the guys are successful to varying degree, right? And if they're not successful yet, you can see that they're going to be, because they have that mindset of achievement. They want to learn from guys that have been in the trenches. They want to learn from guys that have been there before. And it's amazing to see the talent pool that comes here, because it's really, really either guys that are hungry, or guys that have made it and they're looking for, I don't want to say well, they're looking for a better quality of life. They're looking for a place where, you know, their money is well received. You can spend it well here. And when you set up your companies here, you're paying peanuts in taxes. You get to keep most of your money. The services are top notch, and everything here is amazing. So, I mean, the quality and the collection of people is real. It's real here, you know. And you find guys like Jewel, who's, you know, mentors so many of the younger guys, and you see just the quality of guys that he attracts. I mean, it's amazing.
Mm.
It's a really amazing place. I mean, look, you came here because you had to see what it was all about. It was your first trip to Dubai when you
I
came,
was
right?
curious. Yeah.
Yeah, curiosity, and at the end of the day, like you said, Jewel underpromised and over-delivered,
Mhm.
which he always does. He always does. So I think big picture wise, if you're young, you're hungry, you're talented, and you have a pair, man, fuck, I do what I did. Just jump on a plane and say, fuck it. Let's see what happens.
A lot of people get accused of being on the state's payroll in the United Arab Emirates. Oh, you're being paid by the government to say these things. I think Jewel gets it a lot. He's talking about it the last couple of weeks because of all the missiles that are coming over from Iran, and he's saying, "Yeah, there's nothing wrong here. It's safer here than it is in London. You'll get stabbed in London here. There's only one fatality or mild one."
Mhm.
Is there any truth to that? Like, does the government pay people to speak positively of the country, the city, and all that?
I can't say that they do or they don't. I have no idea. The only thing
Mm,
I can say is that I know I'm not getting paid, and I say it all the time.
yeah.
So when I think the day two or day three of rockets flying, I went to the beach. I think I was one of 18 people there. I was there with my girlfriend. I was there with my buddy Zane, and we were at the beach, and the way that I saw, I had a couple of drinks in the system. Out of the 18 people that were there, I think there were a couple of cute girls. We were, eyeballing them over there. Not me. My buddy Zane was, if I was looking, I was looking for him,
Mhm.
not for me. But um, we had a free fireworks show. We had nice entertainment in the sky. It was beautiful. And I went off on a tangent and I started Instagramming and started, saying, fuck this fear shit and whatever, and a bunch of pussies. And I think that went, a little bit. I went overboard on the. I think it was a little bit at the time. So
Mhm.
Jewel commented like 500 times, "Yeah, fuck that shit, give him hell." And I was like, I was laughing. But is it bad? Well, you know what? Let me show you how bad it is. Hang on, let me move this camera. Give me a second, and I'll show you. Show you
Sure.
the skyline, and I'll show you what's what. And you tell me if you think it's bad. Second.
You're in a condo. What part of the city are you in?
I'm in DIFC. So here,
Oh, that's the
that's the
financial district,
skyline.
right?
Financial district.
Yeah.
So how's that? Does it look like we're under attack? Do you see any bombs? Do you see anything going on? And that's
Looks
the beach. I
exactly
don't
the
know if you
same
can
as when
see
I
that
was there a
far,
couple months ago.
right? Because
Yeah.
it is exactly the same. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, there is debris. Yes, there is stuff that happens. There has been, I think, 4 or 5 fatalities now
Mhm.
from stuff that's been intercepted, and I mean, it's tragic. But I mean, as Jewel actually appropriately said, there have been 5 deaths in the UAE since a major war has started between Iran and Israel and the U.S. And I believe there were more murders one night in London than there were here during a war.
Mm.
So, what does that tell you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you don't, you know, I'm trying to think if there's a city anywhere else in the world that I know people, and I know people from all around the world.
Hmm.
And if I'm being honest, I think the only people that I know that speak very highly of the country and the city routinely are the guys that live in Dubai. And uh, I get why it's questioned. Like, I get why people are like, hang on a sec, this looks a little suspicious, sort of thing. But I also get the sense from the people that I met at my time there that they genuinely like it, that they genuinely find that it's a great opportunity. Like, I sat down, I was lucky enough to meet Andrew and Tristan Tate on the last day just before I left because they were going to Nira,
Hmm.
and I was just getting packed up to go and to hop into I can't remember the dude's name, but the guy with the Maybach. I think he did a podcast with him in the back of his car. Anyway, he's
Hmm.
giving me a ride to the airport. So I was messaging Tate, and we met and we had a coffee, and he said the same thing. He goes, "It's like Elysium here, right? Like, this is like the best city that you can potentially want to operate, do business in, or live in. It's expensive,
Fair.
which is maybe a downside to it, but anywhere that's that clean and that organized is going to be pricey. That's just how things sort of break down."
Hmm. Did you meet anybody else that were here? Did you meet any prominent locals? Did you meet any dignitaries,
Um,
anything like that?
there was the Emirati that was on the boat, and I think he was connected somehow. I can't remember his
Yeah,
name.
he's I think part of the royal family from Sharjah.
Right.
That's where my refinery is. Yeah, Ali. He's a sweetheart of a human being. Very nice man.
How
Other
are the
than him,
locals there
that was it.
towards you? Do you find that they're very warm, like they're inviting as far as you and your business, being a Westerner?
I would tell you that. Yeah, okay, we're gonna step into something here.
Okay.
For
Certainly.
me, for me, I will tell you this, right? When we're back home and we're seeing the media and you're hearing all these crazy things about these radicalists that are doing all these crazy demonstrations in the UK and
Mhm.
France and everywhere, and they're ruining the country and they're ruining this and they're ruining that. I came here, and some of my best friends are Muslims, and they're locals, and they are the most kind, beautiful, sweet, loving people you can ever imagine. My mom, bless her heart, she came to Dubai over the Christmas holidays, and she was obviously programmed with the Western media and oh my God, Dubai dangerous and be careful and this and
Mhm.
that. My mom made friends here. She was like a celebrity. She was saying hi to everybody, talking to the cab drivers, talking to everybody. She felt like she was a movie star. Oh, everybody loves me here. It's so nice. It's so peaceful. I'm like, Mom, what have I been telling you for 5 years? You've been scared for me. And I've been telling you, no, no, I'm scared for you being back home. You should come here and hang out here because you're going to enjoy your time. It's easy. The weather, the people, the food, amazing. Everything here is amazing. How could you? It is Elysium. I mean, Tate nailed it. It's absolutely Elysium.
Mm. Um, I put tax efficiency in the title and asset protection because you've got that in your bio on Instagram. Can you talk
Right.
about those two things as well, tax efficiency and asset protection?
Well, for me, I'm a big trust guy. So, if you're structuring your family, okay, depending on where you are, what stage you are in life, right? If you've made a significant amount of money, if you're in a 10 million plus, you got to start protecting your money differently than you would, as a business owner or as a banker or whatever your profession is, right? You're at the 10 million plus mark. You got to start thinking about money differently. You have to start thinking about legacy, about preservation. If you leave it in your name, what's going to happen? Well, inheritance tax. Your families are going to pay massive amounts of taxes for what? For what purpose? Legacy is all about preserving that money. I mean, I'd rather keep 25%. I'd rather not give 25% away to the government in any case. So asset protection is understanding where you are in life, where you are in your financial growth. Are you going to multiply and start stacking wins and stacking millions of dollars? Well, I mean, you need to sit down with a professional who will actually structure all of your assets. And maybe sometimes you have to keep them separated. Maybe sometimes you just put them all together in one family office.
Mm.
Really depends on what you're doing. It's a very consultative operation, Rich, and it's case by case. Can't really generalize it, but asset protection is part of what I do, and part of the reason I'm in the gold business is because protecting your money and keeping it in a fiat form versus in a metal or versus in a business or in a stock or something like that. If you own stocks in, let's say, Apple, right? They give you a certificate. Do you really own anything of Apple, or do you just own a piece of paper,
Mhm.
right? If you buy real estate, well, okay, real estate's awesome. I love real estate. However, you got to pay a mortgage on it. You've got to pay taxes on it. You've got to upkeep it for 25 years until you're paying off your mortgage. Well, okay, well, it's an investment. Is it really? How much did you pay versus how much is it worth when you sell it in 25 years if you get there?
Mhm.
How much of what's the P&L on that? I think most people lose. They think that the price of real estate going up equals the amount of money that you've spent. It really doesn't. It's actually you're losing money doing that. So asset protection is exactly that. It's thinking about how much money you're making, where do you want to put it, how do you want to put it there, how are you going to minimize the amount of tax, how are you going to minimize the amount of exposure you have to other people trying to take it from you, and then building and stacking it while you've placed it, right? All of these things are part and parcel to the same conversation.
What's your favorite strategy? I mean, it sounds like gold because it's physical gold, versus fiat that's in a bank that they can transact, they can tax along the way. I'm assuming, you've got some gold bars, your family takes them, it doesn't have to go through anybody. Like there's no tax on it. They're not going to scrape off a little bit of that to give to somebody, are they?
No. So obviously being in the refinery space, you know, we do a lot of service contracts for different providers or different buyers. And how I get paid is I get paid in gold or I get paid in silver. I get paid in the metal that I'm processing. So if I'm charging you a percentage for doing your job, I'm going to take my money in the exact form of what I'm working. I don't want to get paid in cash, because if I get paid in cash, right, or check or wire or whatever, um, there's only so much we can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think I told you when we were on the boat, my goal is to stack piles and piles and piles and piles of gold and silver, put that away, and just hold them there, right? Still have to make money. I still have to sell a bit of it, still have to pay the bills, keep the lights on and whatnot, but stack as much as I can, right? Much like guys who believe that Ripple is going to be the mecca and the changing of the banking system, right? Guys are stockpiling Ripple like it's going out of style. And, you know, the Bitcoin guys, oh, you got to buy Bitcoin because it's going to be $1 million a coin.
Mm.
Great. It might all be true. But I tell you what, 5,000 years ago, gold was there. 5,000 years ago, silver was there. And in 5,000 more years, gold and silver will both be there. So I don't know about this other stuff. I can tell you gold will be there.
When most people hear the word gold, they usually think of Peter Schiff. What do you think of Peter Schiff?
You just lobbed me that one, didn't you? I've never, ever seen a more cretinous imbecile in my entire life. The guy was right once, not even within a right time frame of a Bitcoin crash and gold going up. Like, the guy got kudos for one call, and he's all over the place, and he is the expert on gold.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's such an expert that when the owner of Binance and him decided to have a chat, he came to Dubai and he was all set up. He was pumped up, you know, no prep, no nothing. And CZ had him like lined up 1,000%, walked him into a trap, and basically said to him, you know, oh, Mr. Schiff, oh, this is gold, huh? Okay. How do you prove it? Can you prove it? And then so Peter Schiff was like, you know, oh, well, I would need my equipment. He goes, oh, you don't have your equipment with you? He's like, well, no, you know, I need to send it to a lab and this and that. He started like just digging a hole.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a gold guy. So what I would have done, right? I would have had the machine there, because CZ's such a brilliant guy. He's going to walk him into the gold traps of every single one. Well, how do you know this is real versus how do you know that's real? Would have had the machine. You know what, CZ, great question. 1 second, would have walked off stage, would have come, get the gun, bleep, bleep. Yeah, it's gold. Or no, this is fake, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would have pegged them right away.
Yeah.
He's such an idiot. He infuriates me because he actually is bad for gold. He's really bad for gold. I would tell you more, but I don't want to say too much. I'd love to have a debate with him. I'd love to sit there with him and listen to him go over all of these beautiful trading charts that he talks about. Oh, no, gold's going to do this and gold's going to do that. And 90% of the time he's wrong. 99% of the time he's in Toronto when he's supposed to be going to Montreal.
Mm.
He's out there. He's out to lunch. God bless his heart. He's out to lunch.
So even though you're in the same business and you like gold and you said that you're going to stack gold and silver till it's going out of style, you still think he's an idiot?
He's an absolute idiot. He's on the right topic, but he's the wrong figurehead for gold. The wrong figurehead for gold.
Who else is a big name out there? Maloney, I think, is another name.
He's okay. He's not really. I mean, he's more financial. I mean, for me personally, the guy that I listen to the most is Ray Dalio.
Mm.
I think when he talks about precious metals, he actually gives you a full understanding of where it fits, not only in the financial system, but where it fits overall in your portfolio, right? And one of the things that he preaches is not buying ETFs or not buying banked gold or paper gold or paper silver.
Mm.
You know, if you're not putting your hands on it, if you can't touch it, if you can't kiss it, caress it, and whatever, do you really own it? Is it really yours? If you can't hold it in your hands, is it yours?
Right.
That's a Ray Dalio thing.
So what's the best way to, once you start to acquire precious metals, to store it? Because I got this friend of mine. I'm not going to say his name, but I'm going to send him this video afterwards, maybe. But I met him a couple of years ago on this Croatian super yacht trip. It's interesting, I meet all these interesting guys on fucking super yachts and boats now. And it's like, people criticize, what are you spending money on that for? It's a waste of money. Well, it's like, yeah, that's where all the cool people are that have interesting stories that are well networked. Anyway, and he's telling me that, he's big on gold. And this was like, I think 2021 or two, like this is before everything sort of blew up. Like gold's done fuck all for a long time. Then it just like, wow. And, he was like, yeah, it's going to go up. I got lots of gold. I'm like, so how do you store it? And he's like, oh, I dig holes in my garden and I put them in these containers and then I sprinkle some kind of a dust over it that, hides it from metal detectors. So nobody going around my yard can find them or anything like that. Like, what is the best way for people that acquire gold to store? Like, is that it? Just to dig holes and put the dust over it to hide it from metal detectors? Or
Rich, so imagine you own something so valuable that you can dig a hole in your backyard, throw it inside, and in 50 years go back and pick it up, right? All it's done is increase value. That's all it's done. It's the same. There was no rust, there was no stains, there is no whatever. You got to wash the dirt off it, and guess what? It's going to be shiny gold. That's exactly what it's going to be. How much does it cost you to dig a hole in the backyard? How much does it cost you to store it there? All it's going to do is go this, right? Now, if you want to do other things to it, and this is where gold becomes really, really, really sexy and really interesting. If you want to take this bar of gold, right? Well, not my iPhone, but an actual bar of gold, which is roughly that size, and you want to bring it to the bank and you want to leverage it, mortgage it, do other things with it, well, guess what? You can. And you're not getting like 40% or 30% like you do on a Bitcoin. You're getting 75, 80% on your money.
is that what the LTV is on a gold bar?
Yeah, it's better than real estate. It's about the same as real estate, right? And on top of that, you can hit it as many times as you can. As the price is going up, you can hit it again, hit it again, hit it again. And I think more than an investment, right? It's okay. Recently, it's an investment. Yes, it's made a crazy, crazy, crazy surge lately. But every single year, even if it is, not super, super, super sexy in terms of rate of return, you're always ahead of inflation. So as opposed to losing 14%, you're actually gaining money. So for me, I see it as the greatest hedge in the history of the world. On top of that, when it does run, it's usually when the world is fucked. So it's running because the world is kind of fucked, right? So right now, I think it's a great time to buy. Even at 5,000 and change, it's still a great time to buy. All the forecasts right now, it's not nowhere near.
Price well at 5,000 still?
Yep. I'm not taking money. I'm taking gold. I think by the end of this year, you should see it push through six and change. And I don't think it's going to take too long for it to be at 10K an ounce. And some of the world leaders in finance and economics, they're looking at gold and they're looking at silver, and they think the biggest upside is still the silver game, right? Because gold can only go so high. They're calling for gold to go to up to $27,000 an ounce within the next 3 to 5 years. Do I think that's attainable? I mean, the world really got to, the world economy has to fall apart for that number to match. I think supply and demand will not leverage it to 27, but can it get to 12, 15? Yeah, reasonably, yes. From that math, if silver that is now starting to get unblocked from the JP Morgan short that they put on it, starting to break through that resistance. So it went from $30 to $90 to $115, back down to 90, and now it's hovering around 80, 85. So it's getting downward pressure and it's getting that resistance level to the 90, right? That's where it's kind of blocking. But if you go back to historical purposes and you use like a 15-to-1 ratio, if they're saying gold is going to go to 10, right now it's at 5. At a 15-to-1 ratio, if gold's at 10K, that means silver's at 1,500 an ounce, right?
Hmm.
So if I divide that by 2 and saying, okay, well, we're at 5, silver should be at 750. Do I think it's going to be at 750 in the near future? Probably not, because we'd have no more electric vehicles, we'd have no more solar panels, we'd have no more of that. But do I think it can reasonably at 250, 300, 350 in the next year? Absolutely, yes. That's how I'm stockpiling silver.
Mm.
I think it can run a 4x in the next year.
Are you more
So
bullish on
any
silver than gold right now?
in terms of profit, yes. In terms of what I can do with it, no. Right? It's the two things. Do I want to make the value, or do I want to be able to do multiple things from a financial perspective? So I still love both. I mean, I'm the gold guy for a reason. I I think I can do more with gold than most. Um, Maybe that's an arrogant thing to say, but I think I can do more with gold than I can with silver. But I'm not an idiot. I love the upside of the silver too. So I take both.
What do
I
you
don't
mean
like
by I
limits.
can do more with gold than silver?
Being an ex-banker, as you said, I had this, I had that, opportunities inside the bank. Well, I'm a smart guy. I will still play some games with tools, and the biggest tool in the financial game is still gold.
Mm. Um, Before I forget, there's a super chat here. Somebody's asking you a question.
Ooh,
He said,
yeah.
I am a dentist in the USA and moving to Peru next year. How can I determine what kind of business should I embark in Peru outside of dentistry?
Um, I've never been to Peru. I have no idea. I don't know if that answer is worth $4.99, but I would say there's a lot of mining opportunities down there in South America, and I think South America is going to be one of the next big places to get in on precious metals. So if you're connected, if you're plugged in, you have some resources down there. I would look at getting some land or looking into some land leases. And if you're lucky enough to find some rare earths or some precious metals, find a partner, JV, and look to exploit that. I mean, that's what I'd be doing. If
What's
I
the
wasn't
market cap?
living in Elysium,
Hmm.
if I wasn't living in Elysium, I'd be down in Peru.
What's the market cap of gold right now? I mean, it was almost
Almost 11, 12 trillion.
trillion. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you add up the market caps of every other commodity and you add them all together, yeah, it's still not gold.
And talk to me about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, because I mean, there was a lot of people that were saying for years that Bitcoin's got the potential to surpass gold as far as market cap. And that was when I think Bitcoin was about $1 trillion market cap. Gold was about 10. So we're saying 10x basically, right? What do
Hmm.
you think about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency? I mean, those are kind of two different things. So maybe speak about them separately. So what do you think about those as far as investments for the future?
Do I think the world is going digital? Yes. Do I think they're going to try to figure out how to digitize certain things? Yes. Do I like it? Do I like cryptocurrency? No, I'm not a fan. I'm an analog guy, Rich, and I think there's something to learn from us old analog dogs. I think that too much going into an area that's never been done before is never a good thing for the guys doing it first. It's either great or it's horrible. Or it's either I'm first, but I'm also out first because I'm the one who's created the market and everyone else eats the shit from the crashes. I'm just not a fan. I don't think we need to do it. I'm not a fan of it, and I'm certainly not a believer in it. Um,
Mm.
that being said, governments are going into digitization. How's it working in China? You know, you walk across the street, you jaywalk. Well, you're limited to, happiness points, and you can't do this, and you can't eat for 3 days, and because they put you in a penalty box. Fuck that shit.
Is
You
it
lose all your
is it
freedom.
that severe in China? Like, I'm not familiar. Like, I know they have a social credit score, but is it that uh, punitive? If you jaywalk, then you can't buy food.
Well, I don't know. I'm being exaggerating.
Okay.
I'm exaggerating a little bit, but something to that effect. Same,
Okay.
same, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Going digital, having your money digital, having everything digital. It's a control system that I don't like.
So you spoke
So,
favorably about CZ from Binance versus the Peter Schiff conversation, and he's
mhm.
obviously a crypto Bitcoin guy. Thoughts on Bitcoin? Same, or do you hold different views of it?
I think it's different. I don't hate Bitcoin. Look, I'm not a hypocrite. I have enough Bitcoin in my wallet in case it goes to 1 million,
Mm,
right? I won't feel like a complete douchebag. So I'm not a hypocrite. Do I own Ripple just in case? Yeah, I own some Ripple. I own about 50,000 coins of Ripple,
sure.
right? Do I again,
Just in case the right. Yeah.
only just because, right? Because I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I'd be, I wouldn't be here on this podcast with you. I'd be in outer space with Elon.
Right.
But I'm still here. I'm still on super yachts with you and Jules. So, that's a pretty good limit to be at, right? I humble enough to, hang on super yachts with cool dudes. So,
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the other big part of guys' lives as well, which is obviously love and relationships. And I think when we met on the boat the first time, you said that you're familiar with my work or you'd watched some of it. What's your take on all of that? Like the modern
the
landscape
modern alpha.
of like romance and love and relationships. Like, how do you manage your life now? I know that you're divorced. You
Mm,
got a very nice son. I met him on the boat.
yeah.
Um, and you live your life a little bit differently in Dubai. What's your strategy right now as far as that goes?
Well, when we met, I was single, and I was enjoying the dating pool of Dubai. And because I've gone on probably 300 first dates, maybe I've gone on a couple of second dates. I would say that the quality of the women in Dubai is interesting. I'll use the word interesting,
Can
right?
you define interesting a little bit more? Like,
Mm,
what does that
No,
mean?
because I'm gonna walk into a whole heap of trouble if I go into any further than that. But it's interesting. You were with me that night. You saw the interesting um the interesting options that were there.
I mean, there's a lot of professionals that I saw
Well,
in the
that's
financial
not that.
district.
Yeah, that's not the interesting part. Well, you know what? Let's say it like this. Whether you're a professional or an amateur, same but different,
Mhm. Okay,
right?
got
And
it.
if that's the only objective, well, okay. Listen, I'm an older guy. We've been there, we've done that, we've got the t-shirt, right? So if there's something in there that's not real, or it's not authentic, it's not organic, it's not a real thing, I just can't do it. I have no interest. I really have no interest.
What do you look
And
for that defines the real thing from the transactional, interesting type of gals that tend to be around a lot there?
it's got to be a real human being. There's got to be a soul in there, and you got to have a connection with someone that is a real connection based on more than just what you can provide. Obviously, that's part of the package, right?
Mhm.
You want to provide for your person. You want to keep them safe. You want to you want to care for them, right? Because that's our job. We're going to protect and provide. That's what we do. But it's got to be appreciated. It's got to be respected. It's got to be admired, and you have to have a soul in order to respect, appreciate, and admire.
Mhm.
And if you're a soulless, interesting kind of human, then you don't have the ability to do that, right?
Right.
You have to find someone, for myself, someone who's attractive, someone who is intelligent, someone with a massive soul, someone with a huge heart. And if you find that, holy shit, lock it down and marry it, because, like, you got to do that, because they don't come around very often.
Do you believe in marriage still today?
I do, of course, yeah.
Do you think it's wise for men to get married?
You know what? At a certain point, Rich, you can get, it's not wise to cross the street. If you're scared of everything, don't do it. I don't really lead with fear. If I want to marry the love of my life and it costs me a shit ton of money, fuck it, I'll make more. Don't care. At the end of the day, if I find one that's worth marrying, she's not going to take me for half. She's going to stay with me. She's going to ride shotgun until there are no more days left.
Would you still wear a seatbelt though, and structure your assets and a prenup and all that sort of stuff?
The gold guy's not an idiot. Of course, I would do that.
Of course.
But at the same time, you know, still lead with your heart, you know?
I heard something from Mike Thurston when I was talking to him. I think he said something along the lines of, the longer women are in Dubai, the kind of like the worse they are, or the harder they are to take seriously or even date.
Yeah.
What do you think he meant by that?
You know, there are some very, very, very wealthy douchebags in Dubai. And it's not beyond
What's a
some of those
douchebag? If you
wealthy.
can define that first, just so I know what you're talking about.
You know what it is, and everybody's listening. Everybody who is listening can absolutely define it.
Okay.
Um, let's just say some not so nice, you know, ungentlemanly fellas that have a lot of money to spend and don't mind spending it. Don't mind, having 7 or 8 girlfriends. Which again, respect. Whatever and however you want to live your life, I make no judgments. The wake of what happens to women behind those decisions, right? Whether merited or not merited, obviously, you're creating some damage, and I tend to not want to do that. I tend to actually want to be with one girlfriend. I don't like having 10 because I can't have 10 women doing this. I One is more than enough, and more often than not, she has more than enough personalities to keep me interested and occupied.
Hmm.
So long as the soul is there, so long as the love is there, God bless, man. That's what I want. But back to your question,
Yeah.
why? Right? All of the women get worse. Yeah, they get spoiled, they get treated badly. It becomes an emotionless situation. They get spoiled with gifts by guys who can. Then they don't really take seriously the guys who can't, but actually want to give them everything, right?
Yeah.
Everything they can, and it becomes a false expectation with what's real in Dubai. Like reality sometimes is blurred. You don't know what's real, what isn't. Guys pretending they have more than what they actually have, and then they set up the false expectations for women, and then they go through the entire relationship, and boom, the guy's broke, he's busted, he spent too much money on his girl, and now she's picking up the pieces of being in a shit relationship with an idiot. And it's a toxic place for dating in certain aspects, but I got pretty lucky. So, I'm a lucky guy.
I've heard the idea that women can only fall in love like once, twice, maybe three times at best, and then after that, it's like they're kind of fucked. They're like alpha widowed, basically. Do you think that's true?
I think potentially it could be true. I think there is truth to that. Yeah.
What about men?
I
Like in your experience, do you think men can do it multiple times?
Men can fall in love every single day, 5 times a day. Of course, we
Sure.
can fall in love,
Yeah.
right? You look at something pretty. Oh, I love that. Oh, I want it. Right? I fell in love with a watch I saw on Instagram. I said, shit, I had to buy it, and then I went to go find it, and I bought it. I fell in love.
Okay.
You're talking about women, though, right? Not stuff, not things.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I mean, I fall in love with cars, but I also
Of
sell
course you do.
cars when I get bored of them too.
Fair play, sir. Fair play. Good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can men fall in love? I don't know if you can fall in love with a different woman every day. I think, when you're young, you can, like squirrel,
Hmm.
we're young, we're idiots, we're too much testosterone. When you get a little bit older, you become more selective, you become more patient, you're looking for the right fit rather than, right now. I think, I can't speak for everyone. I just can only speak for myself.
What advice would you give to younger men in their 20s? There's a lot of young men that have been raised in a single parent household, which usually means single moms. 43% of households, pump out kids, mostly with either an absent father, a father that was a piece of furniture, a father the mother pushed out of the house, sort of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
they've got a strong appetite for wisdom and for knowledge and, for strong advice. Like, what advice would you give to younger men if you could? I mean, you've got hundreds of them watching right now. So what would you tell them?
I'd say first things first, in your 20s, save your money, bank it. Don't party, don't go out, don't go crazy. Start stacking wins one after the other after the other. Once you've stacked enough wins, start investing. So as you're making money, you're investing. You gotta double and multiply and multiply and multiply all the time. Every single dollar you make as a soldier, and you got to put it to work. This is everything. Once you have that multiple streams of income that's operating for you in any capacity, whichever way you're making this money, then you start thinking about girls. Then you start thinking about, marriage. You start thinking about legacy. But don't do it in your 20s. In your 20s, work like a dog. I'm 51 and I'm still working like a dog, and I don't plan on stopping, but you gotta work, 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 work. This is what your 20s are for. You'll have fun when you're an older guy hanging out on super yachts with Rich and I. This is what I suggest.
And you're in finance, banking. You left one of the biggest banks in Canada. Did you ever have your own business prior to leaving that position?
Yep, yeah. I got beaten up pretty good in the crash of 2008. That's why I went to go work at the bank. I
Oh,
uh,
okay.
I had to restructure. I had debts to pay, and I figured out very quickly that I was very talented at figuring out how to get loans approved, and that's how I got into the banking system, and quickly almost became a VP.
What'd you do when you were working for yourself?
Uh, Real estate. I was a real estate. I did some developing. I did a lot of buys and flips and renos and stuff like that. That was what it was. I was also in food service. I had a few little businesses in catering and different stuff. Did a little nightclub promotions when I was in my early 20s. Doing a lot of different things, Rich. When you're an enterprising guy, right? You just love making money, right? It wasn't about the money. It was about the wins. I mean, shit. When I was in high school, I used to record Elvis CDs and sell them to all my buddies, right? I used to
Yeah.
make mixtapes until 4 o'clock in the morning and
Oh,
sell
really?
them to my buddies for $10. I buy an Elvis cassettes for like 14 bucks, and
Elvis.
then oh yeah, shit.
No kidding.
Go, yeah, yeah. We were cool back then. So I buy one cassette for like 14 bucks, and spin it off, and sell like 10 or 12 copies for like $6 each. Pure
Yeah.
profit.
Yeah. I remember going to the flea market a lot when I was a teenager, early 20s, and they used to have these CDs and they called them the Baby Blue Sound Crew. And they're all like, part of it was ripped off, part of it was like homemade mixes, but they were all really good.
Hmm.
There's a lot of guys that were, making these things for like 50 cents, obviously, because it was a CD. So, their time to make it, and they'd sell it for 15, 16 bucks or something like that. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's interesting. What turned out to be the best decision of your life?
Coming to Dubai.
Really?
Yep.
No
Coming to Dubai
hesitation.
was the Nope. Coming to Dubai. This has afforded me the I was grinding in Canada. I mean, Canada's a small place. It's a massive country, but it's really, really, really tiny. And you're limited to talent pool. You're also limited to your friends and who you know and how you know them.
Mhm.
And when you come to a place like Dubai, it's virtually a fresh start, and you're not known. You're a complete unknown, and you have the entire runway in front of you to go and build whatever you want to build, right? Your skill set will win. If you're valuable, you'll get jobs. If you're smart, you'll bring in a network, and if you're a good guy, well, then you'll multiply that network, which is exactly what I've done.
And conversely, what was the worst decision you ever made in your life?
Mm.
And what was the lesson from it?
Oof. What was the lesson from it? What was the worst thing I've done? Um, I probably keep that one off air, buddy. I'll tell you that on a
Tell
side
me, tell me the closest
note.
one that you can tell on air that wasn't that.
Worst decision I've ever made. I'd say trying to buy real estate in Florida as a Canadian. That was probably the biggest financial mistake that I'd made, and it put me into a very high leverage situation where I had to put so much money down. And when 2008 happened, the stupidest decision I made was kept on chasing it and kept on paying and kept on paying and kept on paying. That was probably, everybody else was going bankrupt and abandoning stuff, and
Mhm.
they held the crown jewels of what they were doing. I was a stubborn idiot. I wanted to keep everything, and that was probably the biggest mistake I've ever made.
So throwing good money after bad, essentially.
That's the life lesson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If something's a dog, you gotta, if the dog's dying, put it to sleep.
What have been some beliefs that you previously held true and close to your heart that you had to move away from? I call the process unplugging. It's it's head of my book. The unplugged alpha and stuff like that. With the assessment below, when you take the test the unpluggedalpha.com, it basically rates you on how unplugged you are. So the question I have for you is what beliefs did you hold close, dear, and true in the past that you no longer believe, that you abandoned, that you had to move away from?
Um, is limiting beliefs an actual belief? The belief
Yeah, I would suppose that it's also going to be a limiting belief because it doesn't serve you.
still there?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm here. Can you hear me?
okay. Sorry. Yeah, I got you now. Limiting
Okay.
beliefs, right? A limited belief system of, oh no, that's I can't do that. I don't understand that. I don't know
Well,
anything about
no, no,
that.
no. Actually, more specifically, what beliefs did you hold dear and true to yourself that you found were not true, that they were lies, that they didn't serve you? You know what I mean? Lies.
Uh, yeah. You know, I don't really think. Good question, Rich. Honestly, I haven't really thought about that in terms of actual things that I believed or didn't believe, because I've honestly never been wired that way. I've always been wired that, like, for example, you know, Eastern European parents, limiting belief system is like ingrained into your DNA.
Yeah, you don't
Oh,
trust
you
anything.
you can't do this, you can't do that. You're not smart enough, or you're not good enough, or you're not talented enough. And my attitude was always, "Fuck you. That's
Mhm.
I could do it. I could do it. Of course I can do it. Yes, I'm going to do it." And I just had a fuck you attitude for everything. So I've never had a belief that I couldn't do something. I've always had the belief that if I set my mind to it, I'm gonna do it. So I've not been programmed with. I had such a negative mindset from a parental standpoint that it completely made me, again, say just fuck you to everything. Whatever I wanted to do, I did. And if I didn't figure it out the first time, well, I went until I broke my head against the wall, and until I broke down the freaking wall. I just don't know any other way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Rich? I don't know.
No,
Like,
I know
do you
exactly what you're saying.
what's a limiting belief, or a belief system that you had grown out of?
Well, I think a lot of the stuff that I'll use some more obvious ones. For example, like just trust the government. They've got your best interest at heart. Just believe everything the doctor tells you when you go in. To deal with. It's like now, okay, if I break a bone, I'm going to go to the hospital and let them heal it. They'll set it, they'll cast it. I'll trust them to do that. But anytime I start hearing some shit about take this prescription or uh, the vast majority of the stuff that I hear from medicine today, they don't even know what the fuck they're talking about, for the most part. So
Yeah,
examples like that, like that's what I'm thinking about
yeah,
when I'm, yeah,
yeah. Well, no, same. Again, you know, from our upbringing, we don't trust anybody. If 80% of people are going this way, well, I'm going the other way. I just wired that way. Like,
yeah, that's where the opportunity always seems to be, though, is like when
yeah,
everybody's zigging, you got to zag when there's blood in the street, sort of thing. Like that always seems to
yeah.
be where the big money's made. That's where the big opportunity tends to be.
80/20 principle.
Yeah,
Great book.
yeah. What other
Yeah.
books have
Did you?
been pivotal for you?
Well, luckily enough, I love to read. So I think my phone has like 800 books on it right now. And if I'm not busy doing something, I'm listening to a book. If I'm at the gym, I'm listening to an audiobook, unless I have my buddy yelling and screaming at me to, push bigger weight.
Mhm.
But other than that, I'm listening to stuff. Always trying to get an edge. Um,
Name some
some of
name
the
some of
key
the
books,
books on
some of the
your
key
phone
books.
that have
Yeah,
been like a
yeah.
big game changer for you.
I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to go through the first one. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, was
Oh yeah.
was one that I read as a very young man.
I have an interesting
And
story about Robert, actually. I'll tell you that when you're done there.
oh, cool. Hang on. Let me go to my book. Let me go to my library. Um, so Rich Dad Poor Dad was number one. I read the 48 Laws of Power. That was a great book.
Robert Greene.
Um, yeah, Robert Greene. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Do you know who Dan Millman is?
No.
Numerology guy. Had a great book on the study of numbers, what your life chart is, what your life path is. So many successful men that I work with, you would not believe how much they are into numerology and astrology and their life charts and life paths. It's absolutely insane. So I wanted to find out a little bit about it.
Okay.
Um, Let me see
What did you
what
think of it
else
all?
here.
Were you a skeptic before and then you became a believer?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I was always open to it. I wasn't really skeptical, but it's crazy how much of this stuff is actually pertinent. Um, Robin Sharma, the
Yep.
monk who sold his Ferrari.
Mhm.
So I read that one. That was a pretty great book. One book that I read after my divorce, uh, called a book called Letting Go: The Pathway of Surrender by Dr. David Hawkins.
Mhm.
And the biggest lesson in that one for me was really the ability to take whatever garbage is going on inside of you and actually putting a ball around it and actually just letting it release from your body.
Mhm.
And if you can actually visualize whatever pain or whatever anxiety or whatever stress or whatever sadness, joy, or not joy, you want to keep that, but anything else that's negative, and you want to encapsulate it into a ball and actually just be able to push it out of your system and literally let it go.
Mhm.
Man, that did wonders for me in business, in life, in everything. That was a great book. I highly
Yeah,
recommend Let It Go.
yeah, I learned that concept from was it Brian Tracy? I think he was talking about the notion of resentment and guilt, and resentment's
Mm,
always, it's a very negative feeling towards someone else, and guilt is, towards
mm,
yourself, and you basically put that shit in a fucking, you just put it down, you walk away from it, so similar concept. Yeah. So with
yeah.
Kiyosaki, so I got, I mean, I read, Rich Dad Poor Dad ages ago, obviously, and
Mm,
I got introduced to George Gammon, who's friends with Kiyosaki, and then Robert did a podcast with me, and I didn't know that he was a fan of my content. Like he watches my my content, my work, and I did a podcast with him. I think we exchanged numbers at the time, and I met him at Gammon's conference in Orlando. Super friendly guy.
mm.
He's getting up there though. I think he's in his 80s now.
Yeah,
Um,
he's a big
but
gold advocate too, by the way. Gold and silver
he
guy.
is.
He's a
Yeah,
huge gold and silver guy. He's
yeah.
another one I forgot to mention.
He
Go
likes
Bob,
Bitcoin
love
too,
you.
though. He likes Bitcoin too, though. He seems pretty bullish on that. Anyway, so I did my podcast gig with him. We had a really good conversation. I don't know. A couple of days later, my McLaren was in the shop, as it always tends to be. So I went down to pick it up, and I get a phone call from a number I didn't recognize on the screen, from the States. I answer it, and it's Robert, and he's calling me. He's like, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you for having me on your podcast. It was really great meeting you and talk, like just an offline conversation, like a genuinely like nice guy, just saying, hey, how's it going?"
Hmm.
And I couldn't hear him very well because I was in an area where the cell towers kind of suck. So we had a very brief conversation. We ended it, and then I'm sort of just driving there, and I'm sitting in my McLaren 720, and I'm thinking, holy shit, I just got a phone call from Robert Kiyosaki. I'm like, did I make it? Like, is this making it in life? Driving my McLaren, get a phone call from Robert Kiyosaki. And I'm like, fuck, there's more out there. Let's keep going, right? It's like, you can't settle, you can't stop. Yeah, but that's interesting. So you're definitely a book guy. Like, you believe that the knowledge of the world is summarized in books, to some degree.
Yeah, you got to go and decipher out what works for you or what you need in everything, like you do in relationships, like you do in mentorships, right?
Yeah.
You find what you need in different in everything, in every situation. I think that as a man today, right, you have to understand, you have to first figure out who you are before you can do anything else. And sometimes that self-discovery, is not easy. And if you weren't born with all of this knowledge, you got to go and find it somewhere. And you
Mhm.
got to do the work to actually go and find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most people are too
Um,
lazy to do that.
they are. It's true. Last question for you, and
Yep.
we'll wrap up because
Yep.
we've had a great chat. What do you think of Islam? Living in United Arab Emirates, an Islamic country for the last 5 years. What's your take on it?
As I think I mentioned it earlier, I have so many beautiful Muslim friends. Our beautiful friend converted, right? I think it's an absolute beautiful thing in every respect. I mean, I'm not really a religious person. I believe in God. I believe God exists. I believe it's the same guy up there. And yes, I said a guy. He's a guy up there.
He's not a gal.
And
He's not a lesbian.
no, 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 no. He's a dude. He's a dude.
Definitely a dude,
He's a
right?
dude because yeah, he's a dude because he's laughing at all these other dudes trying to figure it out and make it in the world.
Right.
And I think it's the same dude, and he's all he's put different people on different planets. Oh, I sent this messenger, that messenger, this one, that one, the other one, right? And he's like laughing at all of his children and saying, "Oh man, we're a bunch of idiots. We can't figure this out and come together as one people."
Mhm.
I think the division of everyone is probably something that's been created by different levels of people, and
Mhm.
they do it for their own devious reasons. And I think it's a shame. I think my Muslim brothers here are some of the most genuine, most beautiful hearted people I've ever met. And I'm honored to be here with them and amongst them. And I don't know what else to say about that other than they're great people.
Amazing. Stay on for a bit after we go off the air. I'm just going to play the outro before we go. But again, guys, just want to remind you, QR code in the top left of your screen. Scan that with your mobile device. It'll take you to my community page. There's 3 offerings there: the School of Unplugging, the School of Entrepreneurship, where you learn how to create your own business, and then the 1%, which is the top shelf, where I network with guys in that space. Also below, you'll find the offering to opt in my email list to get my free chapter for my first book on the 21 red flags, and then the 16 green flags for my newest book that was released a couple months ago, which are essentially the bright triad traits, what you want to look for when it comes to women and relationships. And just after that, again, it's been running the ticker the whole time, is the new assessment that we created for you guys. It's absolutely free. It takes you a few minutes to complete, and it'll tell you where you stand on the 7 spokes of a high value man. So where you need to do the work to sort of level up in life. Alex, thanks again. You guys can find him. He's got his Instagram there in his name if you want to check out, what he's up to. He's a super interesting guy, and he puts out very entertaining content on his Instagram. So check it out. Thanks again, Alex. All right, guys. If you enjoyed that podcast, make sure you visit my website at richcooper.ca to learn more about my courses, my book, The Unplugged Alpha, community, or booking me for private coaching. Also, if you are a Canadian with $15,000 or more of credit card debt and what you are doing right now isn't paying off the balances, then visit totaldebtfreedom.ca and hit get a free quote to see if you qualify to settle your credit card debt for less than you owe today over the next 48 months. Make sure you check out the top pinned comment on YouTube for all the links mentioned during the show. Peace.